executives handle self-doubt. Every person on this planet has self-doubt. We all doubt ourselves, every single one of us. From the president down to the janitor, every single person in their career has self-doubt about things. And so how do some of the greatest executives out there handle this self-doubt that they invariably experience? We're going to talk about that today. My name is Tom, and I'm the founder of Vertical Motion, where we help mid-career professionals become executives. If that's interesting, you can learn more by checking out the main video on this channel or clicking the link down below to schedule a conversation where we can talk about how we can help you take the next step in your executive career. But right now, what we're doing is we're talking about how executives handle self-doubt. Confidence comes in a couple different flavors, right? One flavor is this false bravado. It's this social projection of like, yeah, I've got it. I'm fine. I'm confident. I know what I'm doing. But it comes from some hollowness. It's like a projection. It's not really, there's nothing behind the large shell that this person is creating. The second kind of confidence is this quiet confidence that's built from tough experiences and hard lessons throughout life. And those two types of confidence, you see them in different people. And at times, we all deploy both in different ways, right? If you are the parent of a third child, you just had your third baby, you have some quiet confidence to yourself about how to handle that child because you've had experience with two others. And so you kind of know your way around it. So there's this quiet confidence that you carry in that moment where you're taking care of this new third person, right? The false confidence comes from someone who's never done something before, but is trying to convince everyone around them that they absolutely know exactly what they're doing and they have no doubt or uncertainty about how this is going to go, right? So really it comes down to confidence born out of experience and confidence born out of projection. The confidence born out of projection is the one that gets us into a lot of trouble. But if you can draw on those experiences in your life to draw analogies to what you're going through right now, you can actually create for yourself some really great tools to handle the self-doubt that you feel so that you can actually project that quiet confidence as well as that social confidence. Okay, so let's dive into it. There really are 5 ways that executives, great executives specifically, learn how to handle and conquer their self-doubts. And the first way, number 1, is acknowledging and accepting their self-doubt. It's natural for humans to experience self-doubt in themselves. This negative self-talk engine that we have in our head, it's there on purpose. It's wired in by nature. It keeps us safe. It keeps us protected. It keeps us from going into dangerous situations, right? We're wired prehistorically to have this negative self-talk saying, you shouldn't go into that cave. You shouldn't try to jump over that ravine. You shouldn't try to kill that thing. You should run away now from this very large thing that can eat you. That's all wired into us. And so when we use that engine in modern context, we do things like, well, you shouldn't try to do this new job. You shouldn't apply for this new position. The self-doubt comes up differently, but it's still the same engine that's at work, that's been at work for hundreds of thousands of years in humanity. So it's a natural human experience to feel this self-doubt and listen to this negative self-talk, especially if you're in a high-pressure leadership role. And think about every day, every decision you make is super important. It's critical to get it right? That is actually even more so triggering these self-doubts and these negative thoughts about, I don't know what I'm doing, because very few people can do what you do. So very common to feel that, but great executives acknowledge it. They acknowledge that they have this self-doubt. They acknowledge and accept that this is a feeling that will pass. This is a thought that will pass. Does it change my opinion? Does it change my position on something? And then sometimes it does, but most times a good executive will say, well, that's a great point. I can feel the fear and then go do it anyway. It's very impressive when people can do that. The second thing that great executives do to handle self-doubt is they reframe it as an opportunity to rethink situations, right? So for example, a great executive will think of self-doubt not as a weakness, but instead as an opportunity to grow and learn some new strategies or perspectives on the situation that they're in. So with some self-doubt, they might take the opportunity to ask a few other people who are looking at the problem from a different perspective. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? They may reach out to mentors and advisors to help them kind of work through a challenge. And in doing so, they've created created more strategies, more data for themselves to understand how to handle a situation that is creating a ton of self-doubt. But reframe it not necessarily as a weakness. Self-doubt isn't a weakness. It's an opportunity to kind of build your decision-making skills, create some new strategies, and find ways to really get a better perspective on what you're trying to understand in this situation. The third way that great executives handle self-doubt is they remember and recall their successes, right? If you think about this, people get to a certain level because of success that they have. Sometimes they get there because of failure too. It's a whole different conversation. But if you have reached a certain level in your career, you have stacked successes of all kinds throughout your career to get there, right? And so just reminding yourself of those successes helps kind of bolster the confidence that, like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I can handle this. This might be a little bit different, but it's not so different that I can't handle this situation. So remembering successes, skills, and experiences that they've had that can counter that negative self-talk is a way that great executives will help handle their self-doubt. Number 4, self-care. And this is kind of all-encompassing. Specifically, what I'm talking about here is just trying to show up as the best version of yourself. It's been scientifically proven that if you get enough sleep, if you eat healthy, if you get enough exercise, if you get enough connection to other people in a community, a positive-minded community, you get all of those things, you get some self-time, reflection time, like meditation or yoga or something like that. If you do all of these things, the chemicals in your mind are going to be far more balanced than imbalanced. And when they're balanced, you're not going to have as many negative thoughts and feelings and emotions. All of the emotions come from a part of our brain that doesn't know how to communicate in words. So when we feel those feelings, the big part of our brain that applies words and concepts tries to figure out why you feel that way and then comes up with wild stories. You're no good. You suck. You're terrible. That's the cognitive part of your brain trying to answer what's going on in the limbic part of your brain or the mammalian part of your brain that's making you feel bad. If you can calm that mammalian part of your brain down, the bigger part of the brain doesn't have to answer as many questions like, why do I feel bad? Instead, it's like, why do I feel good? So just taking self-care, taking care of yourself really does make a difference in the amount of self-talk or the self-doubt that you'll feel as you kind of go through your day-to-day. I know this isn't a frou-frou wellness channel, but listen, I'm telling you, when I take care of myself, when I sleep well, when I'm not drinking, when I'm exercising, when I'm doing those things, I feel so much better. And the negative self-doubt all just kind of comes down to a minimum level. It's not screaming in my head at sometimes like it is when I'm very tired or hungry or exhausted or worn down or burnt out, right? That's when the negative talk really starts to ramp up. So take good care of yourself. Number 5 is to set realistic expectations for yourself and the situation you're in. So think about this, right? Like setting reasonable expectations sounds simple, but we all have these big, hairy, audacious goals, and we want nothing but just tremendous success as soon as possible, right? Like I want to grow a business to be $10 million a year, and I've been at it for a year, and it should be there by now. Like, no, it's not realistic. Some people that happens, but that is an outlier. That is an outlier. That doesn't always happen that way. Things that happen to people like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, there is a lot of luck and a lot of other things that have to fall into place macroeconomically and societally and technologically in order for people like that to have these outsized experiences where they become multi-billionaire CEOs, right? That's just not a normal occurrence. We talk about them because they are a non-normal occurrence. We don't talk about the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of entrepreneurs and small business owners, that are out there that are just grinding away and making a living and doing well for themselves and growing, but at a much more slower pace, a much steadier pace, right? So just knowing that your expectations are not mismatched with the reality of what can happen. Like if you think about like a distribution curve, the chances of things going to zero is way down here. The chances of things going to 100 billion is way up here. Things generally kind of fall somewhere in the middle of that bell curve. And unless you're an extreme outlier, that's okay, right? That means positive movement, positive progression. So set expectations that are realistic for what you want to do. If you want to be CEO and right now you're a director of product, maybe give yourself a 5 to 7 year plan on how to get to CEO instead of thinking you can get that in the next 3 to 6 months. So setting realistic expectations really does kind of cut down on that negative self-doubt and self-talk that you'll have. Finally, I want to give you one more bonus tip in terms of how executives handle self-doubt. And this one's actually more important than the other 5 that I listed here, right? And this is to build a supportive network. You want to have a community of people around you who support you, that you can lean into, that you can go and ask questions, that you can talk to and just talk through the challenges that you're facing. And it's a great way to give back to them. You can do the same thing for them, help them talk through their challenges and their needs and their expectations, right? Trusted coaches, advisors, mentors, or jump into a mastermind with a group of like-minded people at your level. Those are all great ways to get really valuable. It's a great way to get your thinking to be validated or challenged as needed, right? So you may not be sure if you're doing the right thing, and then you may have this conversation in a mastermind with, say, like 10 other people, and 7 of them all say the same thing. Yeah, I think you kind of get a sense that like, oh, that's probably where things should be. And if that's validating to you, that's great. If it's challenging to you, that's great too. It gives you time and a moment to reflect. So having a supportive network of people around you who are at or above your level, who can help guide you, and then you can pay it forward and do that for others in return, all of that is going to help you tremendously. And that's a big thing that we focus on at the Executive Career Accelerator program. We have a cohort of over 100 people now. We have a mastermind group with 10 to 15-ish senior executives, C-suite executives, people with like teams of 4,000 people or more. It's pretty cool. But that community, there's also this larger, broader community of people who are moving up to the VP level. And those communities are great at serving each other in terms of being that network, not just to pass opportunities around, but also to help each other think through their challenges, their thoughts, and validate those opinions and ideas. And doing that when you have a group of like-minded people that hear your challenge and come up with the same answer as you, that's very validating. And that's going to make you feel a whole lot more confidence and knock that self-doubt down. All right, so those are technically 6 ways to how great executives handle self-doubt, right? So we are acknowledging and accepting that self-doubt is a thing. It's a human condition. We're reframing our doubts to be opportunities to learn how to do things better. We're remembering our strengths, our skills, our experience, and our expertise in those things to kind of counteract the negative thoughts that say, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, actually, I do, right? Self-care, taking care of yourself, getting lots of sleep, rest, exercise, meditation, all that, good, healthy eating, all of those things do change the amount of negative talk you have in your head. Setting realistic expectations for what you can accomplish in a given amount of time. And then finally, building a very supportive network for yourself. Those things are how great executives go about handling self-doubt that they invariably feel every day, all the time. Hope this was helpful to you. And I'm excited to be back on the air in the new digs, and I will see you in another one.